Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to another edition of Intuitive Angling from the steamy tackle room here in Springfield, Missouri, man. It's 90 degrees out. It's about 10:15 at night. It's 90 degrees. Humidity is way up there, and it is like a sauna here in the tackle room. I'm telling you, I got the door open back there trying to get a little breeze in here. But anyway, got a good video for you guys today. I'm going to show you guys how to set up and rig and fish the old jig and worm setup. This is something that's largely forgotten by today's anglers. There's the window of time that this works good, guys, and it's in the summertime. That's absolutely the best time to fish it. I'm going to show you guys all the rigging, how to set it up. Real quick, just a weekly reminder, wanted to give you guys an update if you guys are interested in becoming a member of the channel. It's one of the greatest ways that you can help support the channel here, what I'm doing. You get like additional videos every week that aren't seen by the public, access to my personal email address with some memberships. And if you're interested, just go to my YouTube homepage, click on the Intuitive memberships at the banner on the homepage, or go to the About section and click on Intuitive memberships. Much appreciated. Okay guys, let's talk a little bit about this jig and worm type setup. There's very few guys that do this anymore, and there was never like a big following of it because it's a real technique specific deal. But when you get the right set of conditions, man, it outproduces any other setup as far as with the jig that you can possibly work. And first of all, I'm going to show you guys what it is and how to set it up, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about rigging it and everything, and talk a little bit about the type of areas that you need to fish with. But first of all, start out for this setup. Most every single time I prefer black and blue jig. Got the black and blue Blocka old school jig here. They're back online at Baitworks. I'll include the link in the description to get some. But the technique that I'm talking about, the black and blue jig, is critical because there's a water clarity window that you have to have for this jig worm setup, and the water clarity window is perfectly suited for a black and blue jig. So I start out with the black and blue jig, and then the next thing I do, I've got the Zoom Old Monster, and the color on the thing, there's a lot of different colors that I use. I use plum, Junebug, I'll use redbug sometimes, but just some type of a dark color. And it's the rigging on it's pretty simple. The first thing you want to do is cut the worm just back at the egg sac, just right above the egg sac there. So I've got a worm that looks about that, a trailer that looks like that. And the next thing you do when you rig the thing, you have to have the thing set up right. So you want to rig it like this, where you've got the curly end of it facing upward. You don't want to put it where it's the curly end is like this facing down. You want to turn it over like that because that'll give you better tail action. So next thing I do is I'll come in, just thread it through there all the way. Make sure you stay in line to where you got that proper bend in the worm with it. So the setup is pretty simple like that. It's a really fishy looking thing in the water. Man, the tail action on the Old Monster makes this thing just come alive. But normally, see, I've got about probably a 6-inch tail here, which is the perfect length for it. And most of the time I want the skirt pretty full on there, so I don't do a lot of trim, and I want a fairly big bulky profile. But you can see how that's an edible looking tidbit. The fish just don't see that too much. So the main thing about this, guys, is the tail action on it. The tail action on this thing is the thing that triggers the strikes on it. And you can't really do the same thing with the Texas rig like that. There's something about the jig and the worm combo together that makes this thing work. So the setup on it is really simple. Now let's talk about the important part of it as far as the specific set of conditions that you need to have on there. The first thing you need to have is you need to have hot water, warm water. This thing, I like it when that water temperature, gets 80 degrees. So you've got a window, depending upon what part of the country you live. It's normally maybe a month or two in the summertime. It's usually from about, like right now, we're starting to hit 80 degree water temperature in a lot of parts of the country, and it's going to stay 80 up until maybe early September. So you got that sort of that window of time. The 80 degree water is key on there, because the thing about the jig and worm combo is I'm not fishing this thing on the bottom. I'm fishing it for suspended fish in shallow water. So what I'm looking for is I've got to have the warm water, and then the next thing, I've got to have the water clarity has got to be right to match the black and blue darker combo. So I'm looking for water visibility of anywhere between 6 inches to, at the very max, maybe 12 to 15 inches. Stained water, what a lot of people would consider dirty water. Sort of like when you put this thing in the water and you drop it down into the water, and maybe you've got this much visibility before it disappears. That's the ideal situation. Now what happens with that is when you have that combination of the warm water and the stained water, it will cause bass to suspend in shallow water in the summertime. A lot of people don't know this. A lot of people think that suspended fish are specifically deeper water fish or mid-depth fish. But guys, there is a lot of bass that suspend in shallow water, in dirty water in the summertime. When I'm talking about shallow water, I'm talking about 5 feet or less, that type of thing. So what I'm doing with this, and I'll use the 1/4 ounce jig, the 1/4 ounce block at Old School. Maybe if it's super windy, I'll go to the 3/8, but you want to keep it a fairly light head. I'll put it on my flipping stick with 20-pound test Seaguar and Vizix line, and I start going back into those areas that has the dirty water, looking for whatever available cover is. That cover can be in the form of lay down trees, it can be in the form of standing timber, it could be a grass edge, it could be along a boat dock, whatever like that. But I'm basically casting the jig and worm setup out there, and as soon as it hits the water in that visibility, I want this bait to stay no more than like 3 feet, anywhere between 6 inches to 3 feet underwater. Now it's not, you say, well, that's a swim jig. I'm not fishing this like a swim jig. I'm fishing this thing out of sight all the time. It's a swim jig, basically, a lot of times you keep it inside and you're trying to target the bass to come up on the jig, to hit it from the surface. I'm trying to trigger a horizontal strike on this thing, or it may be even coming down on top of it. I'm not fishing this like a swim jig. I'm swimming it, but I'm not fishing it like a swim jig. This is a technique that's completely different. So say, for example, if I'm fishing down this creek channel bank and I've got a lay down tree, water visibility is 8 inches or something like that, and say the tree comes off the bank and the outside limbs are maybe in 4 to 6 foot of water. What I'll do with the jig and worm combo is first of all, I'll pitch it all around the outside corners, throw it out there, let it sink down maybe a foot or two, and just start slowly reeling it. I don't do any twitching on it, I just slowly reel it. Let that tail action do the action for you, and then I'll pitch it maybe into the interior part of the laydown. Do the same thing, let it go down a foot or two, and just start crawling through those limbs. I do not want this thing to make contact with the bottom. I want it to stay suspended all the time. I prefer, if you have standing timber, which I know a lot of you guys don't have lakes with standing timber, if you can find standing timber or stumps, some type of vertical cover or pilings or dock pilings or something like that, that is my favorite cover to fish with it. I'll look for some type of vertical wood cover. The fish really like to suspend around vertical wood cover in that dirty water in the summertime, and that's why this thing is one of my favorite techniques to fish around docks in the summer. It doesn't matter if you have piling docks or if you have floating docks, the bass will suspend around those docks in that shallow water. Now they'll use the bottom too, but the ones I'm targeting specifically with the jig and the worm are suspended on there. And the ideal situation, if I could give you guys an ideal situation, it would be a dirty water lake that has an abundance of submerged and standing timber, because in a situation like that, a lot of fish will suspend around that standing timber, whether it's submerged or visible, and there's usually some horizontal cover that's fell down, so it gives you a lot more options. But I've done the same thing like on grass edges, reeling it over hydrilla, that type of stuff in the summer, coontail moss, through water willows, that type of deal. So anyway, guys, give it a try. It's something that doesn't get fished much anymore. The old jig and worm combo has been really killer for me in summer water. I've done really good on it. The times that I've done best on it, as far as a specific lake, has been Truman Lake here in Missouri. It's a dirty water lake with lots of timber in it, but I have caught them in different parts of the country as well. So anyway, give it a try. I'll give you guys a new technique for your arsenal. I think you guys might catch a few more fish with it, and it catches good ones too, man. I've caught a lot of big fish doing this. So hope you guys enjoyed the tip. Please hit that subscribe button. We'll talk later.